Buddy, it's Thursday on the downhill side of the week, as those DJs like to say. You stand on your tiptoes, you can see the weekend from here.
How's that? You're cracking off the DJ voice, are you?
Hi, everybody. Glad to have you along on this wonderful, no, it's not a wonderful Wednesday. It's a terrific Thursday.
It is nice to have Office Solutions along for the ride. Maybe we should have them come by and give a tour, figure out what to do with all the various piles we have here in the studio.
Well, there's a lot. You have to.
We definitely need solutions
What
here.
you should do, you should take one of those panoramic shots and look at all the junk that we have piled on our countertops that probably date back to the early 1700s as far as technology goes.
Okay. Let's see what's on the top of this pile.
Okay, well,
Grabbing something at random. Oh, yeah, it's something I printed out for the New Year's discussion we never had. Actually, it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
So, most admired people in America. Here's the response. Well, who do you think it would be, by the way? If you were to poll Americans and ask who's the most admired person,
well, it's usually
2014.
It's usually the president, so usually Barack Obama, right?
It was the president for the most admired man.
Okay.
19% of Americans said so.
Okay.
Who do you think was the most admired woman in America?
Probably Hillary Clinton.
It was Hillary Clinton. Number 2 was Oprah Winfrey. Condi Rice got in there with 4%.
Right.
Yeah.
How about Michelle Obama?
Michelle is in there, 3%. Less than Condi.
Yeah.
Pope Francis took number 2. Bill Clinton took number 3. Reverend Billy Graham
made
a record
Wait a
of
minute.
being on the list, I believe.
Bill Clinton was number 3? Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton.
Are you kidding me?
But he made it with at number 3 with just 3% mentioning his name.
Whatever. All right. So
Barack Obama totally beat the Pope up by 13%.
There ought to be a law against that. Anyway, it was quite an interesting news day yesterday. We got word that the folks, Paul Ryan and Associates, they are the ones who defended Marcus Kaarma in his murder trial. Unsuccessful in that. He was sentenced, or actually he was found guilty of deliberate homicide. Sentencing is set for February 12th. And I spoke with Nate Holloway yesterday, who was actually the one who filed this appeal for another trial.
Well, Paul Ryan was probably busy balancing the budget in Washington,
No,
D.C., right?
different Paul Ryan.
What? Different Paul Ryan?
Anyway, but he told me that the rules are that if you're going to petition for a new trial, you have to do so within 30 days of the verdict.
Okay.
So the verdict was December 17th, so he got it in there in time.
Well, one of my stacks of paper is their claim here.
Yes.
Which I think is worth listening to because it's pretty interesting because it affects not only this trial, but basically if you live in Missoula and you get news, you have an interest in following this case to see whether or not the judge actually thinks that the news in Missoula is biased in such a way that it affects the outcomes of court decisions.
Well, here's how this works. Long before the trial actually began, if you remember, we reported on it as judiciously as we could, is that Mr. Ryan and his fellow attorneys asked Judge Ed McLean, who was the presiding judge, asked him not once but twice for a change of venue. First of all, because of the inflammatory nature of what had happened with a high school student, the community was up in arms, a neighborhood shooting. It was a horrible tragedy, and Mr. Ryan and his associates, and of course Mr. Kaarma, were thinking, gee, can I get a fair trial here? Secondly, they were concerned about all of the negative media coverage of the case, and there was, according to the affidavit there, how many news articles did they have?
In Missoula County? Well, I'll just read it.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Introduction. This is their actual words here that the judge is looking at, as well as the attorneys from both sides. Defendant was deprived of a trial because of prejudicial inflammatory media coverage so saturated the community that an impartial jury could not be drawn and fair trial conducted. In Missoula County, over 450 case-related news items were disseminated. Many of the stories were highly prejudicial. Indeed, even defendant's inadmissible criminal history was published just 2 weeks before the trial. Roughly 56% of the jury pool responded to their questionnaires that they had already formed an opinion on defendant's guilt or innocence. In this case, prejudice should be presumed.
Okay.
They go on to also take umbrage with a few other things. I'll read the next two paragraphs and then it gets into the details. Defendant also contends that instructing the jury on the affirmative defense of justifiable use of force in defense of person over defendant's objection violated his Sixth Amendment right to control his own defense. Moreover, it was unlawful for the state to argue to the jury that the defendant was not in an occupied structure and that he was initial aggressor at the time of the shooting. Finally, movement asked the court to amend the verdict by finding defendant guilty of mitigated deliberate homicide. Evidence at trial established that defendant was not, quote, baited or lured, end quote, into the garage. Robbie Pasmino even testified to that fact, namely the fact that the garage was dark and that they could not see anything inside. Ultimately, evidence established that defendant was under extreme mental and emotional stress due to recent burglaries, and the reasonableness of the excuse properly establishes that, in the interest of justice, the verdict should be modified to mitigated deliberate homicide.
Now, this is important because one of the questions that I asked both sides, both the defense and the prosecution, before and during the trial, and many of the folks who I covered the trial with, I was primarily there most of the time. Greg Baird was also there. I wondered, why isn't there a lesser included offense that the jury would have a chance to say, well, it isn't just deliberate homicide. What about mitigated deliberate homicide? How about, and so there was only, it was the top count. It was all or nothing for deliberate homicide. And in this particular case, the jury decided in, about 3 days, it took about 3 days to do it, that he was guilty of deliberate homicide. So now he is in jail, and he was denied bail, and now he will be sentenced on February 12th. My question was, why not include mitigated deliberate homicide? And if I'm the defense attorney, I'm going to insist on that, But for some reason he wasn't allowed to do that. It was deliberate homicide or nothing. And so if the jury had found him not guilty of deliberate homicide, he'd be a free man right now. I mean, it would be all be over.
Well, watching the federal cases,
because of double jeopardy, they wouldn't be able to recharge him. So,
they could recharge him on another count. They couldn't charge him for deliberate homicide. They could charge him for another issue.
Why have another trial? I mean, it'd be exactly the same thing. So anyway, we need to take a break. But go ahead. You're about to make a point.
My point is that I think it's better when they try to charge someone with fewer things. I mean, it's worse when you go to court and they're trying to throw the train and the airplane and every mode of transportation at you, instead of just saying, here, this is what we think you did, and this is what you should be found guilty of. And if you're not, because what usually happens is, like when you watch these federal cases, they try to throw the whole book at you and scare you into something lesser. They say deliberate homicide.
Well, you can do a plea bargain.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, it was an accident. I'll admit it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're up against the break. I want to know what you folks think, and please set us straight. We're not attorneys up here. We're just throwing darts against the wall here. 721-1290 is our number. Do you have an opinion? Is this something that was right for the defense to do? And should the trial be moved to a different venue? And what about all the press coverage before the trial? Was it basically the argument is the people's right to know absolutely everything about the defendant, and I mean absolutely everything, trump his right to get a fair and impartial jury impaneled? Okay, that is a fundamental argument here. As we're gonna take a quick break and come right back. And we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. And we do have someone who wants to address what we've been talking about. Matt, good morning. You are on Talkback, sir.
Morning. I happen to be a criminal defense attorney in Missoula. That's what I specialize in.
Bless you. I'm glad you called. So set us straight. What do we got wrong about all this?
Well, it seems to me there's two issues that you brought up. One is, why were there no lesser included possibilities of trial as far as convictions other than deliberate homicide? And the other issue you brought up was the change of venue, or the issue regarding whether Mr. Kaarma was able to get a fair trial, whether or not there was too much publicity. So I can speak to either or both of those if you like.
Go for it.
Please.
Now, I would like to hear about the lesser included offenses because, as I mentioned during our opening discussion, I asked both the prosecution and the defense, and neither one of them were able to give me an answer, or wanted to give me an answer. Put it that way.
I can actually give you an answer. I was rather well apprised of most of the procedural things that were going on during the trial. The way it works basically is that if either the defense or the prosecution wish to attempt to get a lesser included instruction in, then they may do so. Typically, a judge won't rule on that until after all of the evidence is presented, and then there has to be a substantial showing that there could have been a lesser included conviction. So, for example, in theory, the defense could have said, well, we're going to submit instructions for the lesser included of mitigated deliberate homicide after the trial. They might have even gone for something like assault with a weapon, although I think it would be highly unlikely the jury would have gone down to that level.
Now, Matt, hold on a second, Matt. What about something like manslaughter?
Well, there is no manslaughter charge in Montana. The hierarchy of charges, as they're laid out in Montana, are a deliberate homicide, then mitigated deliberate homicide, which, of course, requires a showing of substantial mitigating factors presented to the jury during trial. And then one step down from that would be negligent homicide.
Okay.
And in theory, you could also attempt assault with a weapon or aggravated assault.
Now, obviously, mitigated deliberate homicide is what they're asking that the judgment be changed to in the new the papers that were filed yesterday. So my question to you, as someone that's looked at this sort of thing before, is why didn't they try to put mitigated deliberate homicide on the books after the evidence had been brought forth in court?
Right. Well, I'll answer that. Let's start with this. I was very well apprised as the trial went on. I was very surprised to hear that the prosecution were not attempting to give the jury an option of mitigated deliberate. I think after all the evidence was presented, it became clear to me why they didn't present the lesser included. They were highly confident that they were going to get their conviction for deliberate homicide. They didn't want the jury to have an option out of that. Now, as far as the defense goes, why did the defense not present the option to the jury of mitigated deliberate instruction? I guess the defense was just as confident that they were going to win. It's very surprising in these situations that neither the defense or the prosecution attempts to get in that lesser included. But I will tell you that I think that, given the fact that it appears to be the case that the defense did not even try to get the lesser included instruction for mitigated deliberate, I don't see really any way that Judge McClain is going to now permit that option to exist in this motion for a new trial. I think he's going to say, hey, you had your chance to get the lesser included in. As the defense, you opted not to do that, and you can't now tell me that I'm supposed to make a finding which you didn't even give the jury an option to make, which is for the mitigated deliberate. So I don't see that occurring here.
Okay, now Matt, let me ask you this, and again, you're an attorney, and you know some of the strategic things that attorneys confab and do. Could it be that the defense said, look, if he is found guilty of deliberate homicide, we have a better chance of appeal if we do not ask for a lesser included offense?
I think it's more likely that Mr. Kaarma was not willing to permit an option of a bailout position for the jury. It appeared to me from the evidence presented that he felt he had done nothing wrong, and he didn't want any suggestion by the defense that perhaps he was guilty of a lesser crime.
Okay.
So that's my best guess as to why. But these are strategic decisions that are made, and it's always a calculated risk when you decide to present the lesser included, or whether you choose not to. You're making a calculated risk about what you think a jury is going to do, and sometimes it pays off, and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, Matt, if you don't mind, we're up against a break. Can you hang on for just a second, and we'll go into the second thing you want to talk about, okay?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
And please don't bill us for these hours, okay?
Okay.
All right. He says, rats, I'm hanging up. No, we're going to come back. By the way, Matt, thank you so much for for sharing your expertise with us. If you have a question or comment, give us a call, 721-1290. We'll be right back. This is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. We have Matt Stevenson, who's joining us on the phone. He's a local attorney and sharing his knowledge and expertise with us as we kind of sift through this affidavit asking for a new trial for Marcus Kaarma. Now, you had been doing a really good job explaining, the whole idea of a lesser included offense. Now, what about a change of venue and all the? Who could argue about the prejudicial amount of news coverage this thing got in Missoula?
Well, it's a really good question. I mean, the case law in Montana really lends itself towards not permitting a change of venue. Basically, I've made these motions to district court judges before, and they've been uniformly denied. And you can imagine if in a case like this you can't get a change of venue, then when can you? And it's
Right.
a really good question.
Well, we know when, right? Because my friend Joe Dunn, who was killed, he was the sheriff, I believe it was.
The sheriff's deputy in Great Falls, Cascade County.
They moved that trial to another area because it was so, everybody knew about it. It was a big news item.
Judges have discretion over this issue. I knew that they were going to move for change of venue. I think it was their duty to at least try. And, I was told, they're going to move for change of venue. And I said, well, they should get it, but they're not going to. And the basic rule of thumb in Montana with district court judges is they want to call the jury, and if a prospective juror says, I will not be prejudiced, I am impartial, I am not going to be swayed by things I see on TV or things I read in the newspaper, then they must be taken at their word for that. And the option of calling more jurors, calling as many prospective jurors as you want, exists for the defense. So what a judge will typically say is, okay, 45 jurors isn't enough in this case. How many do you want? You want 300? Do you want 500? How many people do we need to call for you to reasonably believe that you're going to get people who aren't already, stilted against your side in this case? And that's typically what they permit you to do. That is your remedy against the likelihood of a prejudiced jury. Now, I don't personally believe it's adequate because people want on the jury. Certain people just want on that jury, and they're going to say whatever they need to say to get on that jury. They'll say, I'm impartial, I've barely heard anything about this trial. It's not really credible when you're plastered with it every day. You can't turn on the TV or pick up the newspaper without reading something about it. But they say it, and, district court judges want to give prospective jurors full credence to their claim that they're not prejudiced, and so I think I'm sure that's essentially why Judge McLean didn't grant the motion.
Well,
it's debatable whether he should or not, but that's essentially what.
The other thing, Matt, is right there in the affidavit. It said the questionnaire itself said that over 50%, 56% say they had already formed an opinion as to whether or not the defendant was guilty or innocent, and so. It doesn't matter whether you have 10 or 1,000. 56% is 56%. That's more than half.
Well, that's, of course, that's why, in my opinion, and it would appear to be your opinion as well, that, this is a case where if you're ever going to do it, you have to give a change of venue. But I'm guessing Judge McLean's response to that would be to say, well, that's 56%. Let's talk to the 44% who say they haven't already formulated opinion and determine from them. And if you need for us to call 200 different people, and 44% haven't formulated opinion, that still gives you 88 people to choose from. And I don't personally believe that's an adequate remedy, but I can understand from a district court judge's perspective that that's what we have to do. We have to give credibility to our registered voters and to our prospective jurors, and we have to take them at their word.
And not only that, try to imagine the bureaucratic mess of moving a trial like that. Say to where? Where would it go? To Helena? To Great Falls? To Kalispell? Where would it go?
You would have to go to get enough prospective jurors to even call a jury. You'd have to at least get it to Helena or Bozeman, possibly Kalispell. And then you've got the problem of all of your court personnel from Missoula, your court reporters with Judge McLean, all of the lawyers, everyone having to relocate for about a month.
The media people.
That's another major consideration for the judge.
Yeah.
Judge McLean is an excellent judge, and we're going to miss him.
Oh yeah, he's
retiring. I'm not questioning his capacity as a judge. I'm really not, but I think that does explain why there are two sides to a question which is on its face obvious. Why didn't we get a change of venue? There is an answer to the question, and it's a tough question.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts, Matt. You certainly helped
have a
me
good day,
figure some of
gentlemen.
this out.
Hey, we appreciate it. Then drive safely, okay?
Thank you very much. I will.
Thank you so much. And there you go. So,
Interesting.
yeah. Now, another thing that came out, and you had just mentioned, is something that was ruled inadmissible before the trial, and that was the release of the defendant's criminal history. In other words, the jury, when the trial started, the jury was not going to be allowed to hear or know about previous crimes allegedly committed by the defendant. Okay. However, 2 weeks before the trial, the Missoulian, I mean, they're good reporters over there, give them credit. They managed to go over and dug up all the things that Mr. Kaarma had been accused of or had been convicted of in the past, published it in the newspaper, other media picked it up, the Associated Press, whatever, and it went, quite literally went all over the world, because you got to remember that the European press was also deeply involved in this case. So every little word that came out, even little tiny KGVO, some of the things that we published went worldwide, all over. And we're way down on the food chain when it comes to media. But even some of the things that we did were picked up by the Associated Press and by other news organizations. So, but the very fact that information was inadmissible in court was on the minds of every single one of those jurors who read the paper or saw the TV report or whatever. So go ahead.
Brian on Facebook says the Missoulian was constantly trumpeting that Didi was baited. And if you read comments online news stories, a majority of responders rallied behind this as proof of Kaarma's guilt. I had not heard that the garage door was too dark, or the garage was too dark for the boys to see anything until you read the appeal this morning.
Right.
Plus, what the heck is garage hopping? Another invention of the Missoulian to coach the actions of kids as harmless and claim it was a game. Biased? Yes.
Okay. Let's get Jeannie on the line. Good morning, Jeannie. What's on your mind?
Hi. Yeah, I want to thank you for having Superintendent Apostle as a guest this morning.
Well, he's not here yet.
Well, if he shows up, I thank you.
He's supposed to come on at 9.
Okay. One thing that could be talked about is concerning this letter to the editor about lack of textbooks for our students. It was written by Brian O'Leary, and it was published in the 20th newspaper.
Okay.
The January 20th edition of the Missoulian. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I personally haven't seen it.
Okay. Anyway, it goes, my interaction with the superintendent began when I raised concerns that there were no math textbooks in the schools for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Instead of being issued books, students and parents were directed to access an online version of the text. And Brian's concerns with this is that a lot of people don't have access to the Internet. So students across the district would not have equal access to learning materials. And he did bring up Apostle's salary, and he thinks that, there's too much money going towards administration. And he gives an example of this. It says Apostle's collection of top-level advisors is bigger and costlier than one in Billings public schools. And so maybe this could be brought up this morning.
Well, we will certainly, if you want to call in and ask a question, you're free to.
Absolutely.
Okay, I definitely will, and that might be one of the things I ask him about.
That's fine.
Okay.
Great. We'll look forward to hearing from you, Jeannie. Thanks.
Open Phones Show.
There you go. All right. 721-1290 is our number. All right.
But if you do want to ask a question of someone, well, we're going to a break. But
Yes.
I was watching Hillary Clinton get interviewed the other day.
Really?
And I was just flabbergasted by the lack of, well, we'll talk about it after the break. I mean, potential president here, and you'll see exactly why when you're dealing with affairs that affect not only the United States but other countries. Former Secretary of State on the ball, a shoo-in to be president right here. We'll play the clip after
All right, this is Talk Back, and it's Thursday. It's January 22nd. We appreciate you joining us this morning, and I hope you're having a good day so far. We kind of got in a little bit into the request for a new trial for Marcus Kaarma, and I've already have a question for Dr. Apostle before he even gets here at 9 o'clock. So we're a little pre-question, if you will.
We could make Peter pretend to be Alex Apostle, but we think we'll just wait for the real deal.
He dresses so nicely and speaks so eruditely that no way I could do that.
Well, speaking of the real deal, I was talking about this Hillary Clinton interview.
Yes,
and it's really important, right, that when we
Right.
ask our public officials or potential public officials questions that we're able to get direct answers. I mean, that's what we want. That's what we need as the American people. And I think Hillary was on her game in this particular. It was a sit-down conversation, just talking with Hillary about her life, her perspectives on things.
Now, was this on The View or what?
No, it was actually a live interview in front of a crowd.
Okay, all right. So basically, remember, this is the presumptive Democratic candidate for the presidency in 2016. The person who she thought she was going to be the one back in 2008, but was supplanted by a very popular, very enigmatic speaker named Barack Obama, who has now been president for 2 terms. And there are lots of pundits that say it's finally her turn, and nothing is going to keep her from becoming president, except maybe this. Well, here we go.
We're not going to talk only about Keystone. I want your thoughts on Keystone, but I also want to know what you would do as hypothetically President of the United States in terms of strengthening your relationship with Canada, and what does Canada need to do to strengthen our relationship with the United States? It's an excellent relationship.
Yes, it is.
But like all excellent relationships, there are things to work on.
Well, you know, I think that's true in any good relationship. It doesn't mean that you reach a status of good and you quit. I mean, you have to keep working on it every day, whether it's a marriage or a parenting or a business relationship, whatever it might be. So we have differences, and you won't get me to talk about Keystone because I have steadily made clear that I'm not going to express an opinion. This is in our process, and that's where it belongs.
All right, so you're running for president. You have divided Congress.
No, she's not running for president yet. She's kind of looking into. She's got her toes in the water.
Everybody knows she's running for president. There's even threats from people in her campaign that they're going to raise more money than anyone's ever raised before.
All right, okay.
All right. Anyway, so given that milieu, right?
Right.
You have a divided Congress on the issue of Keystone XL.
Right.
You have a president that's waffling. What better opportunity do you have to show a distinction between yourself and the current administration, to place yourself, in the game, so to speak? And the answer that you get is just, I've decided I'm not answering questions that might make me have an opinion. It's just silly to me.
Well, first of all, it's been highly publicized that Mrs. Clinton has said about terrorists that we need to empathize with them and understand where they're coming from and what is motivating them to be the butchers that they are. There's got to be a good reason. Perhaps they were damaged in childhood. They need a hug, or whatever it is, but we need to empathize with them. And now we simply have a flat refusal to talk about an issue that's basically divided the country in many ways. And now, of course, with the Yellowstone pipeline spill, the environmental groups are crawling all over that, saying, well, see, you can't have another pipeline. So it would have been a perfect opportunity for her to say, yes, we should build that pipeline, or no, we should not build that pipeline. But instead, she said,
I've decided I'm not going to answer that question.
But she said so firmly.
She did. You could tell she was angry. By the way, obviously you can't see the video.
Right.
But when he brings up, he's like, we're not going to just talk about Keystone XL. So why did he phrase that? When I heard that, I was like, before they had this sit down, he was told explicitly, no Keystone XL questions. And then he said, we're not, that's why he said, we're not going to talk. I want to talk about the relationship in general, right? But when he says that, and you can hear in the background, she's like, her face just got a little bit livid, like just a flash.
Wow.
You know, you kind of see like something underneath the skin coming out for a second, and then it goes back. Yes, we work on our relationships with it. I'm not answering questions about Keystone XL.
Okay. Tell you what, we're up against a break. I want to give Brad, I want to give you plenty of time to make your point. We're going to come right back after this quick timeout. And Dr. Alex Apostle joining us at 9. Hey, it's Talk Back, and it's Thursday, January 22nd. Let's get to the phone. And first of all, Brad, I want to say thank you for holding. What's on your mind, sir?
Yeah, John and Peter, I want to thank you for this show. It's great. It wakes me up every morning on my way to work.
Good. You're welcome.
Well, I'm glad you're awake on the way to work.
It does the same thing for me.
That's a good thing to be.
I don't know what's more frustrating, the politicians in Washington or the criminal justice system. But anyways, I've worked for 20 years providing treatment for criminal offenders, working with the criminal justice system, law enforcement, that stuff. But regarding the Kaarma stuff, as far as the baiting stuff goes, leaving your garage door open would be considered baiting. I mean, we lock our stuff, we lock our doors, we lock our cars to keep the honest people out. And garage hopping in the neighborhood I live in, which is up Miller Creek, neighbors routinely get beer taken out of their garage by young kids, so you don't leave your garage door open. As far as the jury and the unbiasedness, I mean, I believe it's supposed to be a jury of our peers, that peers in being inclusive of those who live in the community with you, your fellow citizens, and they judged him guilty. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
So basically, you think that our criminal justice system did a good job here in Missoula?
Yeah, I do. And as far as, I also do evaluations to determine somebody's risk of being violent in the future. I'm a therapist, and one of the key components of determining that is the person's past and their criminal history. And because the greatest predictor of the future is the past. And so, again, not being a lawyer, I don't know if it's because it was a capital offense that they couldn't access that. But I know from 20 years of working with offenders that when the judge is on the bench getting ready to lay out sentencing or sanctions, they've considered this individual's past criminal history.
Oh, yeah, the judge can. But I think you can see the goals of someone in your position and obviously of a jury are very different. It's not to see whether or not this guy will reoffend in the future or whether he's even likely to offend. The real question before the jury is, did this individual offend in the instance that's up for discussion today? And giving them a whole bunch of evidence of things that he might have done mischievously in the past is only going to prejudice their outcomes.
Well, I guess I would argue that it's a more rounded reflection of the person's character when we look at past behaviors, and how can that not be relevant to present circumstances?
What else I thought was interesting too, Brad, is that the defense, if you notice that the prosecution spent almost 2 full weeks, building its case, whereas the defense maybe a day and a half,
right.
and Mr. Kaarma did not even testify in his own behalf, and if you'll notice that there wasn't a single supportive witness, a character witness, saying, this is not my friend. This is not the guy that I've known. This is not the guy that I've worked with. He doesn't act like that. You know what I mean? So basically, there was a couple of experts to talk about some various psychological things, and boop, that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, from what I was told, the not only the prosecution was not allowed to talk about his prior criminal history, but, and again, I may be getting this wrong, but the defense was also prevented from bringing character witnesses to talk about positive things in his character in the past.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of Paul Ryan. He's a great strategist, a great defense attorney, and I think it was probably strategic from the beginning to plan on an appeal.
Well, he told me that the day of the verdict.
Right. Yeah. So I mean I get that part. I mean, that's kind of lingers back into the frustration about politicians and the criminal justice system, or we might throw lawyers into that picture. No offense to Mr. Ryan, but I mean that's kind of their strategery. So, anyways, I appreciate the opportunity, and you guys have a great day.
Well, you too. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for adding to the discussion, Brad. We appreciate it. John, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi. Some time ago in the discussion about the Kaarma trial was taking place, I heard John respond to a caller. The caller had mentioned something about how did Kaarma's situation become such that he was so aggressive that he would make such comments at the hairdressers or such thing, and why didn't anyone ask him or talk to him about the situation, the state that he was in? And I remember John saying that, well, I wouldn't approach him. Well, that would take courage. And while many of us wouldn't, and that's a normal response, I think that some courage in the face of fear is in order if we're to see to it that justice is really done. Because it seems to me that Kaarma had worked himself into a position of fear, not knowing that this was a kid that was playing a game, but feeling tortured from the entirety of the situation, of multiple break-ins and the frustration in his household.
Hey, hang on, John. Let me ask you a question. If you had been sitting in that salon, okay, or the haircut place, or what, a barber shop, I guess, and you had heard an individual, someone you didn't know, very large individual, was pretty good sized guy, very angry, red face, talking about, would you have stepped up to him and said, "Hey, what's your problem, buddy? Can I help you?" I mean, would you have done that?
I would hope that I would. That's all I'm saying, is that we should hope that we, as that we would be the kinds of people that we admire. The police officer that talks to somebody who's in a bad way to hopefully prevent something tragic happening in the future. And that's all I'm saying, is that we should aspire to that, because when it comes down to this, that child, that Marcus Kaarma's child, may grow up without a father.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point.
Something tragic may happen because he doesn't have a father. How many times do we talk about, well, if that person if that child had grown up in a normal home, and I agree, you do the crime, you do the time. I understand that's how the justice system works. Sometimes it's just not a pretty situation. However, we should always aspire to the goal of the goal of justice, which is to really get at the heart of the situation. And I don't think that Marcus Kaarma, had he seen that Dirindidi running from his house, I don't think he would have shot him with the shotgun. That's deliberate homicide. He fired into a dark place, and tragic consequences resulted. And yes, he was angry, but he wasn't angry at Dirindidi. He was not angry in trying to kill Dirindidi. He was angry about his situation, it sounded like. And yes, he was in a bad way and irresponsible about the way he handled it. That's what I think the jury could have been looking at rather than what they did.
Thanks, John.
Well, John, real quick. Yeah. Because one of the things that came out at the barber shop was the mention of the word kids in the garage. Yeah. This is before the shooting took place. And as I had said on the radio, if I had heard someone talking like that, most likely, especially if I'm just at a hairdresser, I've never met this person, I have no personal history with that person, I assume that they're blustering, that they're just trying to get a rise out of somebody. And maybe it's just because of my upbringing, because my dad is this kind of guy. He says stuff just to rile feathers, just to get people on edge. And then and get you into conversation that way. That's why I'm so relaxed when I'm dealing with people. Is I'm just so used to people trying to get on my nerves, and it's just, And so if I hear someone saying something like that, I assume, oh, this guy's just kind of trying to get a rise out of me,
and he's just blowing off steam.
He's just blowing off steam.
Yeah, and really, I mean, the guy had some real character issues. That we should be courageous enough to at least make the attempt to offer some help for somebody who's in a bad way, so that consequences like this don't result.
Well, hopefully, John, if you were to do something like that, it wouldn't earn you a punch in the nose.
Well, hopefully not, but that's a lot better than what resulted. And I think that as a society, we've gotten our revenge, so to speak, because we fear people that act that way, that act out, and we think justice has been done because now they're locked up. But we still deal with the underlying evils that cause problems, and the evil was what worked on Kaarma's brain.
All right.
And
Well, John?
I don't think him as an individual, had the circumstances been different, and he gotten some help.
All right. John, thanks for your call, man. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your view. We'll be right back. We're overdue for a break. We're coming right back after this. All right, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. This is Talkback, and we only have about like 2 minutes. So but John brings up an interesting point. What would have happened if perhaps, take one of the instances in which Mr. Kaarma, it was testified where he made outbursts, very angry, and talked about killing kids and that sort of thing. What if somebody would have said, challenged him, said, hold on, why are you saying that, blah, 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 you don't really mean that. Okay, quick personal thing here. There's only one person that I know in my life, and that I personally know, that would have been brave enough to stand up to a total stranger, very large, imposing man, and say, hey, you're out of line, buddy. And that would be my mother. My mother barely stood 5 feet tall. Okay, she was in the Marine Corps. She was a drill instructor. She was a DI sergeant. She had a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. She was completely fearless. And I know, I personally watched her intervene in areas which were flat, none of her business, okay? And yet she was able, because of this very strong sense of justice and right and wrong, okay, that's why I love my mom. And she probably would have stood right up to him, nose to navel, and say, listen, young man, you and I need to sit down and talk. And she would have made him sit down and talk.
Yeah.
I mean, so I hope everybody has an opportunity to meet somebody like my mom someday, to help them through the difficult area. And I'm not making light of everything that happened. Trust me, I'm not. But what I'm saying is it takes an extraordinary amount of courage to be able to do that with somebody you don't know, especially when our society teaches you, back off, let them do their thing, everybody, whatever. So with that, we have to take our break, and we'll come back, and hopefully we'll be visiting with Dr. Alex Apostle. Welcome back, everybody. It's hour number 2 of Talkback, sponsored by Bitterroot Motors, doing it right for more than 42 years. Temp-Rite Service, where you can call Team Blue at 728-1111. The Mustard Seed Restaurant, and our newest sponsor of Talkback, we are proud to welcome Office Solutions and Services. Okay, well, the best laid plans of mice and men. We are working hard right now to hook up with Dr. Alex Apostle, with School District 1, Superintendent of District 1, a very, very busy gentleman, and John is on the phone with his office right now trying to get that working. Our telephone number is 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309, and we are hoping that we can get him on here in just a few minutes as Peter is doing the little talk show dance here. Anyway, so some of the many things we want to talk about with Dr. Apostle, there are plans to rebuild and remodel I believe about 11 or 12 different schools. I know that there is a bus tour going on today that is sponsored by School District 1, where Hatton Littman, the communications director, and I believe Dr. Apostle might be among that group, taking folks on tours of schools that are up for repair or remodeling. So that might be there as well. So, everything all right?
When you talk to somebody but not their secretary, yeah, you gotta talk to the person with the book.
Right. What happened?
Anyway, so Alex not going to probably be able to come on because he's giving a tour about 20th century schools. We'll see.
Or that might be him there. You never know. Anyway, so yeah, I had just read about the fact that there is a bus tour today that Dr. Apostle is probably heading up. So anyway. But we do the best we can.
Well, Tyler's on line 1 nonetheless.
All right. Tyler, hi. You're on Talkback, buddy. What's up?
Well, I was the guy who called in after the trial and posed that question and to John.
Sure.
So I was sitting here listening to it, kind of, feeling good about my stance as far as that question that I originally posed. And then I found it ironic that you thought that the only person that you knew who would have ever done something was your mom. And your mom was a vet. She was a drill sergeant, right?
Right.
So it kind of put the two and two together to the connections, and since your best laid plans fell through, I thought I'd call in and just offer this. We go to trial and we want a jury of our peers, but we live in a society where people are afraid to even talk to somebody who's sitting in a barber chair in open public,
right,
saying that he's going to kill some kids, and nobody has the courage, like your original caller said, to confront him and say, let me buy you a cup of coffee. Let's sit down. Can I talk to you?
Yeah.
Are you okay? That right there speaks volumes for our society.
It does, doesn't it?
When we expect our peers to judge us in a court of law, but we can't even rely on our peers to see something and say something, to confront something and possibly put it into a situation that, it would have changed history. It could have.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is all it would have taken is one person.
Exactly.
And I think that was John's point. It's always nice to say, wouldn't it be nice, and go back and that sort of thing. But we can't change history. We have to try to learn from what happened, and perhaps now, if we're at a public place, a grocery store, a barber shop, or a grizzly game, or whatever, and we hear somebody going off saying, "I'm going to kill somebody," it might first of all think, you know what? Where have I heard that before?
Well, and it's not just the negative things. When you see something negative, it's also praise and stepping in. I remember when I was a kid, a girl in my class stepped forward and dealt with a bully that was bugging me. And I was like, man, getting shot down. This is that 13-year-old where girls getting involved in the conversation are very rare occurrences.
Right, yeah.
And so I that always stuck with me. But just think of all the positive things that you could say throughout just imagine if someone had said, "Hey, Adolf, you'll be a great artist someday. You should continue down that path."
Well, and it can be even simpler than that. The other day I was pumping gas over at Safeway, and a lady pulled up. She was an elderly lady, pulled up behind me, and she started pumping gas. And I was standing in my truck, just kind of thinking about the day, and I just grabbed the window squeegee and walked over to the lady's car behind me and asked her if I could wash her windows. And she was so shocked. She asked me if it was one of those pay it forward things.
Oh.
and I said no, I just felt like doing something nice. Doing something nice for somebody in the community, that's what makes a community really a community.
So you were practicing random acts of kindness, were you?
I do it all the time.
Good for you.
You could be a squeegee man in New York. I think they actually have banned the squeegee men, but
well, good for you, man. That's awesome.
Just everybody, this show has a big audience, and if everybody just did something nice for somebody, just randomly, help some lady, to her car with her groceries, or open the door for somebody, or if somebody's saying something, they're going to kill somebody in a barbershop, talk to them,
Or calling into a talk show when the guest that was expected to be there didn't show up.
No, that's exceptionally kind.
I hope I stalled long enough to at least get you through the first break. And maybe
we are up against a break. Thanks, Tyler.
All right, thanks, guys.
Good job, man. Appreciate it. All right, you can.
But by the way, Apostle's office is working with us on rescheduling. We will get them on soon.
All right, so Craig and Brian. But now the phones are ringing off the hook. We'll take a break, and Craig and Brian will get both you guys on right after this quick break. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number, and we have good news. Dr. Apostle will be joining us here momentarily. We appreciate him taking time out of his bus tour, because I know he's been very, very busy. But Craig wanted to make a quick point. So, Craig, go ahead.
Yes, that poor Missoula school district. If they'd have bought that Allen apostle for what he's worth and selling for what he thinks he's worth, they'd be rich.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say that. All right, let's get, okay, hold on. All right. Hey, Alex, good morning. Dr. Apostle, how are you?
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Excellent. Good to have you on, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, now tell me about this bus tour. What's going on?
Well, we have scheduled a number of bus tours for the community and for trustees and for anyone that's interested in basically reviewing our facilities as it relates to a proposed bond issue in November 2015. So today's bus tour will go to, I believe, Whittier, Mount Jumbo, and they're going to see another site also. So each bus tour will visit different sites within our district.
Now, who's on the bus?
Well, the list that I saw included community members, trustees. Of course, we have representation from our district administration. Hatton Littman, our Director of Communications and Technology, is on the bus. Trevor Lebowski, our Executive Regional Director, is on the bus. So I'm not quite sure. I wasn't there when the bus pulled up, but we have a good representation from our school district and our community.
Well, now, last time you did this, I was privileged to be a part. I wasn't actually on the bus, but I met you folks at your last stop, which was Willard School.
Yes.
And I'm telling you what, it was quite an education because, to be honest with you, it's been about 462 years since I've been in an elementary school, and the ones I grew up in were, far-flung areas like Virginia and North Carolina. I knew nothing about public schools in Missoula until I went into that particular school, which is, I understand, was built in the early 1900s and then remodeled over and over and over again, right?
Yes, I believe that's the case. Most of our schools the average age of our schools is 57 years old. And
I got that beat.
Yeah. And of course, our newest school is Chief Charlo, and that's 20 years plus. It's in great shape, but some of our schools are needing great attention, and it's something that we need to address now. Because if we wait, it's just going to get worse, and it's going to be more costly. So we're putting together a master plan as it relates to facilities. It's something that we need to do. I think up to this point, our maintenance and operation people, our administrators that were responsible for maintenance and operation have done a great job maintaining our schools within budget. But now we're at a certain point in time where we have to do even more to bring our schools up to date, especially as it relates to technology infrastructure, which is very costly, safety and security, which was not a real issue when most of our schools were built. But as we all know, the world has changed, and safety and security of our students and staff and community when they're in our schools is very important. And of course, the educational environment that teachers are teaching and students are learning in. Our 21st century model of education is going to require a different environment so that our students can continue to do well.
Now, Alex, I'm going to bring up a story that kind of went viral. I'm not even sure exactly where it came out of, but a kindergarten teacher in a school asked her students to bring like 8-ounce cans of fruit, tin cans of fruit to school.
Oh, to throw at an intruder.
Yeah, at first, great, it's going to be a food drive. No. Those were for throwing at a potential shooter who might come into the school, and I just shook my head. I said, my goodness. So tell me, I realize that's one end of the spectrum, kind of a silly end, if you will, but what is the Missoula School District doing to counter something like that, especially when you consider that our schools were not designed to keep people like that out?
Sure. I don't know if the situation you just mentioned was a school in our district.
No, it was not. It was out of state, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't think that would happen here. But basically what we've determined is that we want all of our staff to be trained in active resistance, which is a training program where our teachers will be able to defend our children and defend themselves if and when an intruder comes into the building or our district. And we're very happy to report that we're working with our unions, and we're creating time for our certified and classified staff to be trained. And I can tell you that every person that's gone through the training, and we have a great relationship with the police department and Mark Putty, who is working with the school district right now as a police officer. Everyone that's gone through that training has said it's the best professional development that they've ever had. And our police department and Chief Brady have done just a superb job training our people, and the goal is that every one of our employees, certified and classified, will be trained in active resistance training.
Now, some of the employees, and I've witnessed some of this training. Okay,
yeah,
and some of your employees take to it like a duck to water. Okay,
yeah.
Others, just because people are different, others are a little more resistant, a little harder for them to understand the concepts. But the whole idea is to allow your mind to think about, first of all, because when you're an educator, you're dealing with educating. You're not really thinking too much about trying to protect kids from somebody who might want to harm them, okay? But to get them thinking in that direction, at least for a while, kind of opens up that doorway in their mind and allows them to begin thinking about the correct way to do it. Am I right?
Absolutely, you're correct. And what I'm getting back from our staff is that they have become more aware of their surroundings. They're more aware where the doors and the exits are in their rooms, where there's windows that they could possibly escape from. The fact that they would have to, it's better to be aggressive than to just sit back and get yourself in a situation that's going to be highly detrimental to you and your students. It's better to fight and do what you can. And so this active resistance training is a model that we've incorporated in the Missoula County Public Schools. And quite frankly, according to the police department and Mark Putty, this is being mirrored throughout the country. And other school districts in the state of Montana are doing the same thing. They want to do the same kind of training we're doing. But basically, we're saying we want to do the best we can, as fast as we can, to prepare our staff against any possible harm to them personally or to our students.
By the way, just if anyone's interested, that story that Peter was referencing came out of Valley, Alabama.
Okay.
And if I were one of those kids, I would bring pumpkin pie filling because that stuff has like an atomic weight near plutonium.
Tell you what, Alex, we're up against a break, so can you hold for just a minute, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, Dr. Alex Apostle joining us. Catherine, we promise we'll get you on. I know you have questions for Dr. Apostle, the Superintendent of School District 1, here to take your calls and questions, and we'll be right back. It's Talk Back, and we're rocking right along this morning. Again, we're glad to have Dr. Alex Apostle joining us, the Superintendent of School District 1. And Brian has been waiting quite a while to visit with you, so let's push the right button here and say good morning. Brian, you're on with Dr. Apostle. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks for taking my call, Peter.
You bet.
I was the gentleman who the earlier caller referenced the letter to the editor.
Yeah, that was Jeannie. Yeah, go ahead.
And I have some questions for the superintendent regarding textbook availability in the school.
Okay.
His last raise in 2013 was very controversial, and one of the concerns about it was that student needs were going unmet in the classroom, and he was getting a raise. This fall, it came to my attention that there, in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, students were not issued math textbooks, and that they were supposed to look online to access the books. I had some concerns about this because it doesn't exactly help students who don't have access to the internet or computers. And it doesn't provide equal access to education. When I talked to the district about it, I was told that they could not afford to buy books for every student, and that there just wasn't enough money in the budget. And at the same time that the superintendent's salary has gone up 50% since the start of his tenure. So now the end result was that the district put 4 books in each classroom in grades 3, 4, and 5. That means that about 90% of the students don't have access to a book, and the explanation is that there isn't enough money. So I'd like to know if the superintendent would agree not to take a pay raise until the situation is resolved and all students have access to equal learning materials in the district.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Good morning, Brian. And there's no question. I haven't received a raise, and I will not be receiving a raise. I just want to make that very clear. I also want to make sure that people, and you, Brian, understand that the board voted to give me the raise. I accepted the raise and the raise was given to me based on my performance. I don't think there's any question that overall the school district is moving in a very positive direction. If you've read the newspapers, listened to the TV broadcasts concerning the progress that we're making, there's no question that we're doing good things for kids. We're currently evaluating where we are in terms of textbooks in grades 3, 4, and 5 in math. And as we promised the board, we will I indicated to them that we were going to do an audit, and we will be reporting to the board our findings. But what we're finding out is that some of the schools are saying we don't need additional textbooks. We need other types of materials. Now, I agree with you that we need to make sure that all our students have access to what they need so that they can get an education. There's no question about that. We're in total agreement. And I can assure you, if our students need textbooks, they're going to have textbooks. If they need different types of technology, that's where it gets real pricey, and it's going to be very difficult. And that's why we're analyzing the needs of our teachers and our students, and we're reaching out to parents, by the way, to find out their feelings about this issue. So I don't think we're disagreeing, Brian. We want the best for our kids, and if it's going to require for us to think differently in terms of the budget and in terms of what we can do to give our kids what they need, we're going to do everything possible to make that happen. I can assure you of that.
Hey, Brian, anything else?
Yeah. The superintendent said he's not getting a raise. Is that for the final year of his contract? Has the board indicated that to you? Because that issue has to be debated publicly.
Brian, I'm having a tough time. Let me switch ears here.
Okay.
I don't know if my phone is on my side or your side, but I'm having trouble hearing you.
Well, hang on just a minute. Let me flip this button here. So, Brian, why don't you try that question again? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the superintendent indicated that he said he's not getting a raise. I thought that issue had to be debated publicly, and that there had to be, that meeting had to be publicly noticed.
Well, yeah, that's all going to happen, but you've asked a question, and personally, I'm not expecting a raise, nor do I want one. But it's got to be formalized in public, absolutely, and it will be.
So you won't accept one then, and then whatever resources are left over will be used to meet these needs that you said, so students have equal opportunity to learn.
Absolutely. We're going to do everything possible, and
Thanks,
we
Brian.
have been doing everything possible to give our students a step up in terms of their learning and as far as giving our teachers what they need. But as you know, Brian, in public education, we've never had enough money to do everything that we've wanted to do. So we've had to make budget adjustments and look at various allocations to make things work. And I think we've done a great job. In the last 7 years, we've never had a problem with our budget. We've never had an audit finding. I mean, most of our money goes to salaries and benefits and to support our teachers. That's where most of our budget goes.
We got to come. We're coming up to a break here, but when we get back, one of the things that I spoke to you recently about, and I'd like to talk a little bit on the air with Talkback, is the potential of a new high school here in the city of Missoula. There's a bill before the legislature that I know you went and spoke out against recently. And I'd like to get some of your comments and maybe the public's interaction on this issue. Would Missoula be better off or worse off if Hellgate became a K-12 facility?
Okay, we're going to come right back after this quick timeout. And Dr. Alex Apostle joining us. Catherine, I promise we'll get your questions on as well. And we have one line open at 721-1290. This is Talk Back, and it's Thursday, January 22nd, a beautiful day. Some clouds in western Montana. And right now, Dr. Alex Apostle joining us on the telephone, Superintendent of School District 1. John, you asked a question before the break.
Yeah, let me give you just kind of this issue came up on our radio show the other day. It's something I thought about, and as a parent, myself. One of the things I think about is options and opportunity and choices. I like to have, as a parent. And so it seems to me that having the Hellgate Middle School, or Hellgate Elementary, I should say, being another high school option here in Missoula seems like it might be a good deal for my family. But you came out pretty strong against it, and I was hoping you could kind of explain that position to the public a little bit.
Sure. Thank you very much for allowing me to do that. I strongly believe K-8 expansion would move in a direction that is quite contrary to overall public sentiment, highly detrimental and damaging to our current, exceedingly successful program in the Missoula County Public Schools. We have Big Sky High School, Sentinel High School, Hellgate High School, and the Willard Alternative High School program, which are all performing at a very high level, that are 4 to 5 miles away from Hellgate Elementary. The Missoula County Public Schools have programs in play that are making a difference today, not tomorrow. Programs such as the International Baccalaureate program at Hellgate, only the second high school IB program in Montana, a state-leading health science academy at Big Sky, the only one of its kind in the state. In addition, Big Sky High School will also begin the regular IB program in the fall of 2015. They're also going to be adding an engineering program at Big Sky, modeled after the very successful Health Science Academy. We're implementing a finance academy at Hellgate High School in the fall of 2015, a multi-media academy at Sentinel. We have the best programs in our high schools in the state of Montana. There's not a school district in the state of Montana that has the programs that we're offering. And it takes years of work and dedication and resources to implement those programs. And even more programs are coming through our elementary and middle schools, which will raise the expectations and standards of our high schools in the future. But to say that, people want choice. We have choice in the Missoula County Public Schools.
No. If the programs really are as great as they sound, they should be a selling point for those particular schools, right? So if I'm a parent and you have IB and I want my kid to be involved in IB, then I would send them to a facility that would have that provided to them. And if that wasn't a big deal for me, maybe I would go to maybe it's closer to my house or something.
Yeah, well, 3 to 4 to 5 miles away with transportation being provided, I think is a real plus for any student, for any family, to be involved in programs such as what we offer. I'm not quite following the logic of the Hellgate Elementary system, but if they want to continue to pursue this, that's fine. But we have schools that have led the state of Montana in terms of graduation rates. The last 4 years, we've had the lowest dropout rate of all AA's for the last 4 years. We've got an excellent program. To duplicate or to begin to try to duplicate our programs in another building and another school that's 4 to 5 miles away from us, I'm not sure the taxpayers are going to want to do that.
Well, no, Alex, how much of that has to do with, because, it's common knowledge, it's state law that a school district is funded by the amount of students that go to that school. So if students are siphoned away from, let's say, the 200 students from each high school went to this new high school, how would that affect the funding for all the District 1 schools?
Well, it would have an impact, but, what I've been communicating is that I don't want our school district to be at the mercy of Hellgate Elementary School, to be quite honest. We're going to continue to move forward. We might have to, in the worst-case scenario, make some adjustments, but I can assure you that we will continue to move forward in the Missoula County Public Schools to do the very best for the students that we serve. And, if I were a parent, and I had a choice of whether to send them to a school that's just starting out versus a school district that's well-established, that's been moving in a direction that is dealing with the issue of 21st century learning, there would be no question in my mind. And what this involves is additional taxation. And so I just don't understand why we're pursuing this. We already have too many school districts in the state of Montana as it is, and too many schools. And if you really want to get down to where the visioning of public education, education is changing, and I'm not so sure that building new schools is a smart way to go when students are already involved in digital learning 24/7. And to add another building, another school at this time when the world is changing as it relates to public education is a smart thing to do.
So you're saying Montana needs to centralize its school system more?
I'm saying that we have enough schools, and that with the direction that school districts across the country are going, and universities, where online learning is becoming more evident every single day, I think to begin to think about building another high school when in Missoula we're offering a great program in four different buildings, I just don't get it. I'm not sure what people are asking for in the Hellgate Elementary community.
Okay, we're up against a break, and we're going to come back, and I promise, the moment we get back, Catherine and Jeannie will get your calls on, so stay with us. As quick time out, we'll be right back. Dr. Alex Apostle staying with us until 10 o'clock. We'll be right back. Talk back. 721-1290 is the number. All three lines are full. Of course, Dr. Alex Apostle joining us this morning, Superintendent of School District 1. So let's get right back to the phone. I promised Catherine we would not wait an extra second. Catherine, please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, John, almost inevitably you ask the same questions that I plan on asking. So
I apologize.
Yeah, you should.
I should take that telekinetic link out of my brain.
Well, you guys are psychopathetic, so go ahead.
I guess so. So anyway, but so to kind of tangent off of what the previous discussion was, Hellgate Elementary is a separate school district. It's not under the authority of District 1, as I'm assuming, right?
That is
right?
correct, yes.
And how about Target Range and DeSmet? Those are different school systems too, are they not?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So are you planning on looking at trying to get in the future those districts under the umbrella of District 1? Is that part of this?
No, absolutely not. That's nothing on my radar. All I'm saying is we have a great number of schools surrounding the Missoula County Public Schools, and that's my point.
Well, may I ask a question, Alex? And this has always intrigued me, is how are school districts delineated? How are they created?
That in the state of Montana, I'm not sure how all that works.
Okay.
To be quite honest, but I'm sure there's history there and precedent on how all that's developed.
Sure. Okay. Well, okay. Catherine, go ahead.
All right. Can comment on that. Over the last 30 years, I noticed in North Dakota and Minnesota that there's been a lot of consolidation of schools under like a county-wide school system, both elementary and high school, which has led to children being bused out of their small farming communities to a larger urban area. What that does is it kind of stabs the heart of a community, because the heart of a community is its school and its children. What that also leads to is a significant disconnect between the community where a child grows up and the child itself, because they are taken out of the community. They are bused for an hour or so elsewhere. And when you brought up thinking, or you said a little thing, a sentence about how you think that there's too many school systems or school districts in the state of Montana. So I was thinking about that when you said that.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the total number of students
Thanks,
in the state of Montana and the number of school districts, that's what I was basing that on. And I was basing that on my experience in other states. But, having a community have their own schools, I think in many respects, that's a very positive thing. All I'm saying is that in terms of the issue we're discussing, K-8 expansion in relation to Hellgate Elementary, and its proximity to the Missoula County Public Schools, I think that's not a good way to go, because we're so close to the Hellgate Elementary District, and we have established 4 outstanding, comprehensive high school programs.
You know, I remember visiting with Jean Curtis when she was addressing a public forum of some sort, when she mentioned that she was one of the final. She lived in Sealy, and they had to bus her and her fellow kids all the way in from Sealy into high school. It was the longest commute in America to get to school and back again.
Really?
Until they built the Sealy High School.
And it was uphill both ways, I'm sure.
Yeah. In the snow, yeah. but let's get Jeannie on the line. And Jeannie, thanks for your patience. You're on with Dr. Apostle. Go ahead.
Yes.
Good morning, Jeannie.
Now, Jeannie, you're going to have to speak up really loud because we have a bad connection with you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I would like to comment and then get Superintendent Apostle's response. I believe the district is going in the wrong direction. We need the basics rather than more programs. We need to return to the basics, as I said, which is textbooks, which Brian O'Leary brought up, good teachers, and neighborhood schools. And the district in their facility plan is not addressing reopening our closed schools, because as Catherine said, the school is the heart of a neighborhood. And this not reopening our schools contributes to the continuation of massive busing. And one of the schools that needs to be opened is Prescott. The district just approved a 40-year lease of a garden on Duncan Drive, and it makes sense to me that a school would be more important to the rattlesnake than a garden. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the call, Jeannie. So, Dr. Apostle, go ahead, please.
Well, first of all, the trustees have not made any decisions on the bond itself. They have not come to any conclusion in terms of what the bond will entail. So the discussions are continuing. We're reaching out to our staff. We're reaching out to our community. We just sent out a survey just recently in the last few days to get input from our community regarding the bond issue. So we're doing everything we can to get everyone's opinion, and everyone, of course, is entitled to that, to their own opinion, and that will all be taken into consideration, I'm sure, when the board will make the final decision on the bond issue itself and what the bond issue will represent.
Okay.
So everything's on the table, and in terms of one comment that was made, I will tell you that it's important for public schools to meet the needs of an ever-changing world. We can't stand still, and I believe the Missoula County Public Schools are leading the charge to make sure that we have a relevant and highly rigorous program of instruction, so that when students go through our system and they graduate, and they're graduating at a very high rate, I must say, that they have options before them that they could take advantage of. So there's no status quo in public education. When you say status quo, basically you're going backwards.
Right.
And so we're doing everything we can to do the very best for our students and our community in the Missoula County Public Schools.
And with that, I want to give Sue and Pete, we have two folks on the line. We have our last break is 1 minute, and so if you guys can hang on for 60 seconds. We're back on Talkback, and only a few minutes left in the shows. I want to get as many calls in as we can. We want to visit with Dr. Apostle, so let's get Sue on. Sue, thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to let Dr. Apostle know that I saw his testimony the other day on House Bill, I believe it's 107, we were just discussing about Hellgate Elementary. And I just wanted to say that the other night I also attended a Hellgate Finance Academy meeting for parents, and the only way to move forward in the Missoula County School District is to just do it. And I am so impressed with the Finance Academy that I wish that I could go back to high school, because I think that these kids are so fortunate to have teachers and administration who are getting the community involved. There are people from the banks and financial institutions that are going to have students doing internships in their businesses, and then it's a forward-thinking, moving into creating jobs for these kids, these internships that they're going to be able to have, learning finance and economics and that kind of thing. And so I really would ask some of the people that are calling in and griping about, some of the things that have happened in the past to move forward and realize that the only way to move our students forward is through programs that get the community involved. And I really thank Dr. Apostle for that.
Now, Sue, do you have kids that are taking the financial class?
I do. My daughter just got back from D.C. actually, and she came to the meeting with me. And
well, hopefully she taught all the people in D.C. what she learned in her financial class, because I think they could use that.
Yeah. Well, she's hoping to. She's a senior next year, so she's hoping to be able to take advantage of some of the classes. But
good deal.
I just think the curriculum that they've worked up is amazing, and I just want to say how happy I am that they're going to be teaching financial literacy, because it's very important.
Sue, thanks for your call. Appreciate that. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
I
Doctor.
just want to thank Susan for that, and I think she understands the big picture in terms of what the school district is trying to do. Thank you,
All right,
Sue.
let's get Pete on. Pete, thanks for holding. You're on Talk Back with Dr. Apostle. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Just one comment and a question. The comment is that the Hellgate District information indicates $32 million for the building, and that's what they're concentrating. But they hadn't talked about the additional cost to staff and administer and operate.
Sir, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay. The Hellgate District has talked about $32 million to build a building, but they haven't addressed the staffing, the furnishing, and the administrative costs that would go on top of that.
That's right.
So that's the comment. The question is on 107. If I understand the language in that, it would only allow those in the Hellgate district to vote, even though it would have a financial impact on us in this district.
Yike.
You're
I
correct.
think that should probably be amended to allow everybody in the district
That's a real problem,
to vote.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Pete. Go ahead, Doctor. What do you think?
Well, I think he was spot on. When you construct a school building, you're not constructing it for the current situation. You're always building in terms of the future. And from my calculations, you're not going to build a school that's looking into the future, especially a high school, with $25 million. You're just not going to do it. So I think it's important to get the facts straight in terms of communicating with the taxpayer. And the fact that you have to staff that building, you have to buy furniture, you have to maintain it, there is a tremendous cost. I'll give you an example. It costs about $39,000 a month in utility bills at one of our high schools. It's an expensive proposition. It's just not building a school. It's furnishing it, it's staffing it, it's maintaining it.
Infrastructure.
The infrastructure. And if you're going to build a school for the 21st century, a high school, it's a lot of money.
All right, let's get Candy on the line. We have 3 minutes left in the program. Candy, go.
Okay. I was taken aback when the financial program was being taught by bankers. For some reason, that just scares the heck out of me.
They're fairly savvy with finances, aren't they?
Yeah, they certainly are. They certainly have their way with finances, yes.
They're
and
not going to be teaching the classes, ma'am. They're not going to be teaching the classes. They're advisory.
So, yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the banking community that doesn't get out of the banking community.
Okay,
but
so
anyway, that's
what's your
not my
question for
comment.
Dr. Apostle? Go ahead.
Yeah.
We have to be quick here.
I was just wondering if maybe the Hellgate, I've been involved in the Hellgate elementary system, and I had students there. And so, and that was way back. But nevertheless, if it were relegated just to the Hellgate elementary area, taxpayers and stuff, I could see that maybe they didn't want to be involved in the school district system for other reasons. Maybe there are some things that are probably distasteful for them morally and ethically.
Candy, I'm really
that,
sorry, but we need to rush the. So what's your question?
So I'm just saying that I think that maybe it should be given up to the taxpayers in that area and left to them whether they want to build that high school or not. Because,
well, so the rules are that apparently the taxes would not just be in that area; they would be for everybody in the.
Well, I think that the gentleman that said they should amend that had a good idea.
All right, thanks.
Okay, bye.
All right,
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean. I mean to rush folks. But
Alex, thank you so much for being on Talkback. We only have a few minutes left. I'll give you an opportunity here to sign off.
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to have this open conversation, which can be risky at times. But I just think it's important to have this type of conversation to, number one, clarify issues, to put the facts on the table, and to dismiss rumor and innuendo. So I appreciate the opportunity very much.
Well, we appreciate the fact that you're willing to come on with us once a month, and that again, that's a big commitment on your part because I know how busy you are. So we appreciate that.
I think it's important.
Yeah, you got a lot of courage,
much, Peter and John. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Dr. Apostle. All right,
he's not playing like the Patriots. That's all I can say about that. So it takes some gumption to come on. That's
something we haven't even addressed that yet. and all the really fun commercials, fake commercials that have come out so far.
I haven't seen any.
It is let's just say the innuendo is so thick that you can cut it with a knife, okay, or with what are those little plunger things? Anyway, so we are. You know, where you blow up the football by hand.
Yeah. If you had seen his actions here in the studio, you would know exactly what the heck he's talking about.
Okay, well, you guys have a great day. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 6 for Montana Morning. And then, of course, talk back with open phones tomorrow coming up at 8.